Wait, this isn't Final Fantasy VII Remake. Well, I have a lot of reason for explaining all of this, but I did have all the footage recorded and I have the script, I guess you can say on the first paragraph written down, but I do have a little personal event going on this past few months and it kinda stopped, I wouldn't say stopped me, I'd say stuttering for making this video, and then a couple of months passed on, I was finishing off the script, and then later on I was like nearly getting all my voice recordings out of the way and all scripted done, but then I just like decided to like sort of cancel it because I don't feel my mind is right on it, if you know what I mean. But that's not to say I never will do it, but I will get to it into like maybe a few months time whenever I feel like going back to it again. I might even look at Rebirth whenever I get to that. Even I've been playing it, it's still a fantastic game. But right now, I just want to like get myself back on track and get a bit more comfortable with what I want to do. Like, I want to go back to like Sonic and Mario for the time being, and maybe throw in like one new game for individual video. I may not know. Only because I feel more comfortable and it's really easy for me to do it since my last video is like since January, I want to say, which is my Sonic CD video. My god, that's like long enough to wait though. But today I want to look at one of my favourite video games of all time, which is Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Knuckles. Now, why are these two games right here in this? Well, there is actually a reason for this, if you haven't been living under a rock for the last 30 years. While the Japanese developers finishing off Sonic CD, the development began in January of 1993, straight after the release of Sonic 2. The SEGA Technical Institute began development by the use of the SEGA Virtua Processor chip that allows SEGA MegaDrive games to use 3D graphics with isometric view, and that the game would be titled Sonic 3D, which is Sega's answer to the Super Nintendo's FX chip that has been used for games like Star Fox and such. But that isometric concept would not come to be until the release in 1996 Sonic 3D Flicky Island, which I will cover one day. But the processor chip idea was scrapped as they realised that the game would not be finished until 1994. So they decided to make Sonic 3 back to the conventional 2D game. The processor chip idea was only developed for one game, and that's Virtua Racer, which runs better than Star Fox, not to mention that the game is also expensive, which is sold for and I calculated this, £60 when it was first released in 1994, which is the equivalent of £130 if it was released today. So with the processor chip idea put aside, the STI actually split into two teams. One team, mostly Japanese developers led by Yuji Naka and Hirokazu Yasuhara, to work on Sonic 3, while the other are American developers to get to work on the game to be released on the holiday season of 1993, which is Sonic Spinball. So to make the game that already makes Sonic 2 great, how do you make it even better? Well, just make it bigger and better, with level design of triple the size than Sonic 2, bosses at the end of each act, and the most unique of all is the game's storytelling elements by letting the game tell you its story visually of what happens in each zone. Unlike other games where they use of text boxes a lot of the time, like in RPGs or adventure games, but in a platformer, I don't think any other game back then does anything like this, and it's very cool to look at. Sega then created a new character for the game design by Takashi Yuda, a rival and then turned friend of Sonic's named Dreads the Echidna, because of his dreadlocks and he's red.
Done!
But Sonic Team and Sega of America's product marketing manager Pamela Kelly has decided to change his name to Knuckles the Echidna, which sounds much better. The development, like Sonic 2, was just as troubling. It's not just Japanese and American cultural differences. The game, at first, was all meant to be one whole package. but the game ending up being a bit too expensive to develop with the 34 megabit cartridge with NVRAM. So the game was not at all ready to go and was released in February of 1994, while also kids get their McDonald's Happy Meal and then their parents buy them the game afterwards. If you actually think I'm joking when I say McDonald's promotion is also the reason the first half of Sonic 3's release.
Where do the stars of Sega Sonic 3 go when the game's over?
Sonic? Are you guys in there?
No, they're at McDonald's, where Sonic launches with a push of a button and Tails flies who knows how high. 4 fearless toys, one with each Sonic 3 Happy Meal you buy.
Yes, I said first half of Sonic 3, so the game has to be made in 2 parts. The levels that were in was hidden in the level select in Sonic 3 alone, which is a pain to do. The zones Mushroom Valley, Flying Barry and Sandopolis were there to be selected, but they don't work. Also, the second half of Sonic 3 has been released in October of 1994, which is about 8 months after the first half was released. It was released as Sonic and Knuckles. It has the same amount of levels as Sonic 3 alone, but Sonic and Knuckles has the expense of other features from Sonic 3 alone. Sonic 3 alone has a save feature and you can play as Tails, but Sonic and Knuckles doesn't have those features, but you can play as Knuckles. But this game's cartridge which has probably the most unique concept in gaming history, the lock-on technology, where you can plug in any MegaDrive games and you can play the Blue Spheres game. It's a marathon of Sonic 3 special stages that has, wait, what? It has 134,217,728 levels. You know, I refuse to believe that. I want to know who actually done all of them, and I want proof. But if you plug Sonic 2 with Sonic and Knuckles, you get to play as Knuckles in Sonic 2. And I find it weird that plugging in with Sonic 1 doesn't have a playable Knuckles feature. But the real meat of it all is when you plug in Sonic 3 with Sonic and Knuckles, you get the whole Sonic 3 package. This has a save feature and you can play as Tails and Knuckles in their own campaign, and you can play through levels in Sonic 3 alone and Sonic and Knuckles levels with all 3 characters. So this is the whole package of Sonic 3 that Sega wanted. I find it really cool that something like this is even a thing, even before, you know, DLCs were even a thing. You can just slot it in and you get the one whole package that the original version never really have. Now you may argue that it isn't fair to charge 2 full games in full price when it was first released, but I mean, you can argue you're probably right, but in my case, I don't really have a problem with it. Of all my years playing this in the mid-90s, watching my family members play it a few times, and then later on I get to have a shot at it, whether it's Sonic 3 alone, Sonic and Knuckles, or Sonic 3 and Knuckles, I really do enjoy myself with it. When I play casually without getting the Chaos Emeralds, I enjoyed the level design, the bosses and the music, which I'll get into later. But the question is, do you have a reason to actually play these 2 individually? Well, that's a yes and no. Well, yes is for more curiosity's sake that Sonic 3 alone is really glaring design where Sonic or Tails can't get past certain walls, but when you plug in with Sonic and Knuckles, it turns out that this is the Knuckles' path. Also, there's a glitch where you face off Robotnik boss fight in Hydro City where you defeat the boss, but the capsule is nowhere to be seen, so you have no choice but to die and fight the boss again, then the capsule appears again. Also, Sonic 3 alone has its own music tracks like the title theme, Knuckles' theme, the minor boss theme, Extra Life, and the ending credits theme. But in Sonic & Knuckles had a few changes too, and then plugging in Sonic 3 has a few tracks got replaced. Lastly, both Sonic 3 and Sonic & Knuckles' length individually is about an hour long, so with both cartridges you're talking about over a 2-hour playthrough, and it may turn out a few people off by the game's length. But in my case, that doesn't bother me as long as the game's fun from beginning to end. Now, it's obvious that I love the game, but can I really convince you to play it for yourself? So the story of the game takes place right after the events of Sonic 2. The Death Egg crash landed on a floating island called Angel Island. Dr. Robotnik has discovered a giant Chaos Emerald called the Master Emerald, then encountered a ready Echidna, Knuckles, who is guardian of the Master Emerald for the most of his life, and before that Knuckles gets his chance to get Robotnik, he tells him that he is in no wrong, that what he should be worried about is Sonic and Tails, and that they're the real bad guys, and wants to take the Master Emerald for their own. Of course we all know that Robotnik is lying to Knuckles, but Knuckles agrees to help Robotnik, so Sonic and Tails arrived on Angel Island to go investigate the Death Egg wreckage on the island. So Sonic transforms into Super Sonic to get quickly and undone with, then all of a sudden Knuckles Sonic out of his super form, then grabs all the Chaos Emeralds and then runs away. So then we begin the game with Angel Island Zone. You can play as Sonic or Tails individually, but have their own moveset. We start with Sonic. He's pretty much like what he is in Sonic 2, with the spin dash back, how it works in Sonic 2, which is probably the best thing to do since the spin dash in Sonic CD is a bit of a pace breaker. But no super peel out though, and I'm kind of sad about that, to be honest. But I can do it in Angel Island Revisited version of the game. But this adds probably one of the best additions to Sonic's moveset, the Insta Shield. By pressing the jump button twice, Sonic will do this quick slash for a split second and give Sonic a wide hitbox and hit enemies that a normal jump can only do so much. And it's really useful in boss fights. Tails, who plays exactly like he did in Sonic 2, actually been given his own moveset. He has his given new flight ability by mashing the jump button, which is really useful to use by discovering hidden walls that contains monitors and different paths that you couldn't reach as Sonic. But he will get tired after a while, so use it carefully. But Tails is an ideal choice for first time players that may find beginner friendly because of his flight ability. Now in terms of level design, like I said, it is about as triple the size of Sonic 2's, so it's not all about going fast in a straight line, you go fast by left, right, upwards and downwards. But don't worry, it's not Sonic 1 bad where there is some fast section and then all of a sudden it's pure platforming. Though each act can take about 3 minutes max, a lot longer than Sonic 2 levels, but to be honest, I'm not bothered by it. Well, besides that I have to play this game for about 20 plus years, the levels are incredibly fun to blast through that sometimes that I forgot how long I was in the levels, and that at times I didn't want it to end. So this game does a good job by making sure that you can get by levels as fast by any means. Not only that, you can even find multiple different pathways in ways to complete the stage. I even still to this day manage to find different paths by complete accident, or it piques my curiosity, whether it means I find different monitors or a giant ring that I never discovered for myself. Also, the levels doesn't get quite samey, but for story purposes, the landscapes can completely change by running into the game's cutscenes, with most of the time encountering with Knuckles. Take Angel Island for example. It starts out this quite green, vibrant looking, and then all of a sudden you come across a Robotnik robot, then all of a sudden Nuke starts coming down, then everything's on fire. Not all of them have this sort of feature, but I really do love how the game keeps it fresh and interesting as you progress through the playthrough. There's a few things added in Sonic 3. We're introduced to the Elemental Shield power-ups that have their own unique abilities. So the regular shield from Sonic 1 and Sonic 2 is no more. So we have the Fire Shield that protects you from fire hazards, the Electric Shield protects you from a very rare electrical attack, but it can attract rings which is very useful, and finally the Bubble Shield that prevents you from drowning. Also the shields have their added abilities which only Sonic can do. The Fire Shield lets you do the dash jump, which can come in handy to keep the pace going in the level. The Electric Shield allows Sonic to double jump, and then the Bubble Shield allows you to bounce from the ground. Enemies have great flexibility of how you go about these levels, and gives you a bit of relief when you have those in your hands. At the end of each act we have boss fights. Yes, you don't fight bosses at the end of each zone anymore, but at the end of the first act you fight one of Robotnik's creations, and in the second act you fight Robotnik himself. But they can easily be dealt with, especially the ones when you have the shield power-ups. And some of them can be incredibly tedious. The one that springs to mind is the one at the end of Sandopolis with this Pyramid Guardian, where you have to guide him to this sandpit on the other side, or even faster, in massive quotes. You can bop him a few heads a few times and then get him back there. The problem is, it takes a few seconds for him to get back up before you can hit him again. The worst of all is against Robotnik at the end of Act 2 in Lava Reef. First of all, you can't hit him yourself at all. In order to hit him, you have to allow these spike balls to hit him, which you can only avoid by lava below you. You only release 3 at a time on each side. The problem is, it takes over 40 hits to take him down. Yeah, not what I call great design. Though most boss fights are not as easy as it seems by bopping them on top a few times, some of them have their own strategy to take down, like the end of Carnival Night Act 1. This robot actually has this spike disc you can open up by hitting it from the side, and then let the disc come back to hit it. Then the fight against Robotnik at the end of Marble Garden Act 2. You can get a few hits on him before he sinks the ground, then after that you can fight him by flying with Tails, or with your Tails you have to hit him with his propellers underneath him. Also, checkpoints have bonus levels if you have the amount of rings where you can score extra lives and shield power-ups if you need them. There's this gumball machine where the machine falls down a few levels, a slot machine where you can score a few rings and extra lives. Finally, my favourite of all, glowing spheres. You ride these magnetic spheres and jump all the way up to the top, while collecting shield power-ups, rings and extra lives. The track play in this stage is great. You may have noticed that you don't get into special stages in checkpoints unlike Sonic 2. Yes, the special stages are once again handled differently. This time you have to find them in hidden paths and find this giant ring that you can enter. So no amount of rings is required to enter them. The special stages are also different where you actually collect blue spheres by following the path and avoiding red spheres. If you do that then the stage ends, so be careful. The real challenge is that the longer you stay in the stage, the faster the stage gets, and gets real tense when you wander all around finding those spheres. You can also collect rings to get continues, and also get a perfect when you collect them all, but it's only for a higher score, but it's also what I like doing. I think this is my favourite special stage in the series, period. Because the challenge is just right, it's tense and exciting. When I complete a stage after going through those moments that I felt good. Once you complete a special stage, you're rewarded with a Chaos Emerald. Like Sonic 2, there's 7 to collect, and collecting them all grant you the ability to become supersonic. Once again, you collect 50 rings, and this time you actually have to press the jump button twice to transform, unless you're not using the shields. So this time you're giving a choice when to transform into him, but when you have a shield power up, and there are a few occasions where I wanted to use the insta-shield, but I forgot that I had 50 rings, then accidentally transformed, he is still great as before with invincibility, double the speed, double the jump height. But in all honesty, after playing this game for a long time, I don't often use super forms as I did when I first collect all the emeralds. And I wanted to beat the levels as normal to make it more interesting. Or I can use it against boss fights that I just don't give a fuck about anything. Anyway, getting back to the story, as we approach launch base, the Death Egg is ready to launch again. So our heroes manages to defeat Robotnik, but the Death Egg crashed on the island once again, so the job's not done yet. So Sonic and Tails race through the island once again to destroy it once and for all. However, when we arrive in Mushroom Hill Zone, Knuckles has appeared outside the cave and seal it off. So as us players we investigate, it turns out he was hiding a special ring that takes us to Hidden Palace Zone, where the Master Emerald has been placed. Then the Chaos Emeralds flow out of our heroes, placed and transform into the Super Emeralds, so we have to collect the emeralds again in the Sonic and Knuckles section of the game. It's unfortunately you can't use the Super form when the Chaos Emeralds are taken away. However, if you're like me, you can actually collect all the emeralds in Mushroom Hill alone. So with that, collect them all, bring life back to the emeralds, we get our Hyper form, and if you're Tails, he gets his Super form. I don't get that though. He doesn't get his super form when he collects the Chaos Emeralds, but it takes the Super Emeralds to finally get his super form. Weird. Anyway, Hypersonic. The most broken power-up in the game. Not only he's the fastest, he can dash jump in any direction like a double jump, and not only that, he can kill every badnik on the screen when you use it. I always wondered for so many years why he hasn't made an appearance since this game. I mean, sure, he's flashing multiple colours and giving a bit of a seizure, but I mean, you can do a workaround, like make him platinum or something like that. Or if you want to rip off the Dragon Ball series, you can use Ultra Instinct look. Anyway, we have Super Tails, besides having double the speed, he has faster flight speed, and best of all, he has his super flickies where they attack on every enemy on the screen and make absolute mincemeat of bosses. So after that, we run through Reef, and the Death Egg has prepared to launch once again. Then they arrived in Hidden Palace Zone and then have an encounter with Knuckles, who is pathetic in all honesty. After taking care of him, the place is invaded by Robotnik and steals a Master Emerald and gets away with it. So Knuckles has finally realised who the main villain is and decides to help our heroes. So they're taken to Sky Sanctuary to catch up with the Death Egg, while encountering another Sonic's metallic counterpart, Mecha Sonic, by trying to stop us by using Robotnik's old creations. Wow, what a dipshit. So after that, dealing with Mecha Sonic, they climbed the tallest building and then arrived at the Death Egg, finally able to stop Robotnik and bring back the Master Emerald. It's not a straight level like Sonic 2, and it's actually more dangerous, with little cannons on the side, electric floors, and anti-gravity gimmicks here and there. So here we are at the final encounter with Robotnik with his giant Death Egg robot, while also using the Master Emerald's power with his cannon attack. After dealing with that, the Death Egg is finally destroyed, but Robotnik's getting away with the Master Emerald, and now go to Doomsday Zone, which is only available if you collect all the Chaos or Super Emeralds of Sonic. Such a climatic battle, flying through asteroids, avoiding missiles, and at the final part we ram into the robot until he falls apart. Despite having the Master Emerald with him, he never puts it into any use in this fight. After that, they take the Master Emerald back to Angel Island, take it back to the sky, and Knuckles sends his regard on the distance. But that's not the end of the story. We have Knuckles' story. Ah, you think we have forgotten about it, didn't you? I'm saving him for last because his story takes place after the main game. Knuckles is just chilling after the event, but that chilling just comes too short, so this Robotnik robot spoils his relaxation and chases him. Though in this opening cutscene shows that you start Mushroom Hill when you play Sonic and Knuckles, but in Sonic 3 and Knuckles, you're just thrown straight into Angel Island Zone, and other versions will actually have the opening cutscene in Angel Island Zone instead. I'll talk about the other versions later. Anyway, the debut of Knuckles the Echidna. He has the spin dash, but he has the ability to glide and climb up walls thanks to his knuckle nipples. No idea how he's able to glide. Seriously, you see these hands? Anyway, Knuckles' campaign isn't exactly the same as Sonic or Tails. I mentioned earlier why Sonic 3 alone's incomplete design. Sonic 3 and Knuckles answers that question. Knuckles can take different pathways that Sonic and Tails couldn't take. So Knuckles' campaign can be described as very unique of how he goes about on Angel Island, considering he knows the island by heart and also a different way of progressing through the story. He also had a couple of boss fights which differentiate of what Sonic and Tails offer. And also some fights you don't fight at all. Like Carnival Night Act 2, you just straight out finish the stage with no boss fight. Look at that, it only took me nearly a minute. You can still collect Chaos Emeralds and Super Emeralds. He has his own super form, which, again, double the speed and climb up walls faster. And then Hyper Knuckles that has not have multiple coloured mess, it's not too much different from Super Knuckles. Except when you collide with the wall while gliding, he can actually shake the screen and kill every enemy on screen. The only annoying thing that I didn't like about the super forms, as I mentioned earlier, is the method of transforming when you hit the jump button twice and you don't even realise that you have over 50 rings. Only because some level design require you to climb up walls or glide which make you transform anyway. Also his jump height, well more accurately in Sonic 2's version of the game, I didn't mean to jump around games like that, but I don't know how to segue into it, but whatever. There's certain obstacles that Knuckles can't jump straight over because of his jump height isn't as high as Sonic or Tails. The final boss being the shining example of that. I have the absolute hardest time with this. So you might have to take the most riskiest strategy you have to do, without having a janky hitbox. Anyway, back to Sonic 3 and Knuckles. After that, you get to the end, so Knuckles has no Death Egg Zone to go through. Instead, we're at Sky Sanctuary Zone, where you see the island sort of rock side to side, looking like it's about to fall. After Robotnik grabbed us in this scripted sequence and takes Knuckles to the one and only Mecha Sonic that survives the fall of Sky Sanctuary and Sonic's playthrough. Knuckles defeats it, but not very long, as Mecha Sonic makes a dart to the right and gets the Master Emerald that I suppose he takes off screen? Mecha Sonic then used the Emerald power to turn into his own super form. This is a great fight. You have to avoid his attacks before he turns back into his normal state so you can then hit him. So with Mecha Sonic finally defeated, Knuckles gets the Monster Emerald back, for some reason Sonic's here, and gets the island back up in the sky. What a blast. Graphically, this game's great, the environment looks great and colourful, the character sprites look good. In fact, I'm gonna say that I think this is the best looking Sonic sprite ever. I love the look and it's a lot more detailed than previous games. I know most people associate old sprites. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love it too, but Sonic 3's way better in my opinion. This game's soundtrack is fantastic too, definitely my favourite of the MegaDrive games. It has a nice pop and funk feel to it that makes me bop your head in a few of those. But this game's music behind the scene is more interesting part of the conversation, and it all points to one man, Michael Jackson. Now, it was reported that SEGA hired Michael Jackson to compose the music for this game along with the debut of Jun Sono, the veteran of the series, and Michael Jackson is a Sonic fan and wants to help compose the music he helped SEGA before Michael Jackson's Moonwalker game on the arcades in 1990. However, since his child abuse allegation in 1993, Michael Jackson would then go uncredited in the final product. But a few music pieces that he might have produced for the game based on his songs is still in the game. It was until Sonic & Knuckles Collection, released for the PC in 1997, the music from Carnival Night, Ice Cap, Launch Base, and Knuckles' theme are completely different. But people rule it out as convenience. The game's been released for other consoles and the music's still kept intact. It wasn't until his death in 2009 that we hardly see a re-release of this game since. Then in 2019, a ROM of Sonic 3 prototype in 1993 leaked on the internet that people can play on emulators, that the music from the PC port are exactly the same. So then that means that these were the original tracks all along? So then people then jump to the conclusion that it was definitely because of Michael Jackson's involvement? But then in 2022 when Sonic Origins came out, and once again the music from the beta version are still the same. These musics are not bad, but I like the final version better. But at this moment in time, it's all speculation at this point, and we really don't know the whole truth in all this. Whether it's for legal reasons why Sega's so silent on this whole thing. Well, to Yuji Naka even posted on Twitter or X that Michael Jackson actually did compose the music in this game. Though I would be here all day to discuss all this, which I'm pretty sure you can find other YouTubers talking about this sort of stuff. But the fact of the matter is, this game's soundtrack version is great no matter what version you're playing. As if the composer list was already bloated already. Look at this! But speaking of other versions, let's take a look at the other ports of Sonic 3 that I think you should play. First up is the Sonic 3 Angel Island Revisited. This is a fan-made port of Sonic 3, but a more fleshed out, with widescreen support and best of all the customization and tinkering you can make with making your playthrough a more comfortable experience. I got to admit, it was weird going back to this when I first played this, and this game has a few updates, but almost every environment and boss seems to be faster, like they have taken the drugs out of this shit. But other than that, I think this is the best version of Sonic 3 you should play. The changes they made, all the customizations you can make this game flow better for your liking, and it even makes a few achievement hunting if you're into that kind of thing. Even Tails gets a super form after collecting the Chaos Emeralds, but he's without his Flickies friends, and they appear in his Hyper Mode. Alright, this is what I'm talking about, some consistency and... Oh, well I guess that's enough of that. So that just leaves us with Sonic Origins on modern consoles. Now, I was a little hesitant to go back to this version since I never think much of this version, and I don't remember much of this version. Plus the music that changed from previous, like I mentioned earlier, I don't find as good. But after playing this on the back of playing the A.I.R version, I have to say I really enjoyed my time, if not as good as the A.I.R version. With all the attention of detail the game does to get more fleshed out version of Sonic 3, but also add a bit more content like a playable Amy. The only complaint I really have is that I ran into a few collision issues, like dying from an obstacle that's going upwards acts like I've got crushed. But other than that, it's the same Sonic 3 experience I already know and love. Now I haven't even mentioned the ROM hack Sonic the Hedgehog 3 Complete. As you can see, I have a reproduction cartridge, and it actually works. It amazes me that they managed to fit basically 4 games in one cartridge, and even with all the customizations you can do, But unfortunately, this doesn't actually save your game, and you know what? I'm not bothered about that. I absolutely do not mind playing this from beginning to end from scratch every time. Or you can play this on emulator, if you don't even want to buy a reproduction cartridge. Now, in case it isn't even obvious at this point, I love this game. It's one of my favourite games of all time. Hell, even all the recording sessions I did, I played Sonic 3 alone with Sonic. I've done both playthroughs of Sonic and Knuckles with Sonic and Knuckles. Then I played Sonic 3 and Knuckles with all 3 characters. Then I played the Sonic Air version with all 3 characters. Then I played Sonic Origins with all 4 characters. And yeah, I might get sick of it a little bit after a while after recording these sessions. But hey, I can do it as many times as I want and I wouldn't really care. Now I'm telling you to go play this game. If I haven't even convinced you at this point, then I don't know what to tell you. Now I think with this game save feature, I think you'll be relaxed a little bit, even considering how long it is. Even if larger level design turns you off, then I recommend you play Sonic 2 first. If you're convinced that, then play Sonic 3. Sonic 2's more of a comfort zone to even get you at beginner's luck. Plus the pacing's out of this world and very easy to get into. But I think this is a class above. But this is going to be weird to say, but this is what I call a comfort adventure. I played this game over and over and over again, trying to get all the emeralds, memorizing the special stages, which is the quickest way through the level. What haven't I explored yet? And on top of that is the amount of replay value this game offers. What you can do with Sonic, Tails and Knuckles, even how their stories are told. Once you beat the game, it feels well earned. Returning the Master Emerald back to Angel Island and take it back up into the sky with the amazing credits theme, listening to most of the zones you went through, and then end it with an epic final melody. So there you have it. I love this game, one of my favourite games of all time. In fact, I'd like to know what you all think, if you have played this game before watching this video, and if you're entertained by it, then let me know. Did you grow up with the game like I did? Is this your favourite, or you think the other game's better? Then let me know down the comments. But we're not exactly done with the MegaDrive era yet. Though, like my Sonic CD video, there's actually another SEGA add-on for the MegaDrive that also flopped massively. But, like Sonic CD, are we going to find another hidden gem? But, we'll see you next time with Knuckles Chaotix for the SEGA 32X. Now this is new territory for me because I had played this game on emulation years ago, but I never actually finished it. And for some reason I never went back to it since. But we'll see on the next time. So with that, I'll see you next time. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.